Okay, so Carter tests out the new Titanium Ranger powers. But does the other four of the team not exist? Hi everyone and welcome to another Ranger Rants episode. Of course everyone knows I'm Archer9234. Today I'll be discussing episode 11 from Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue titled From Deep in the Shadows. Episode 11 doesn't actually use footage from GoGo 5. This is an fully American episode. It doesn't use any footage from GoGo 5. The only stock footage it really is like for a very few short seconds. But overall, this is not adapting from any episode from GoGo 5. The episode begins with, as usual, Joel attempting to reach testing of some sort. And he's always late as usual. He's late from main testing from morphers, from weapons, from Zords, everything. He's always been late, so he always arrives last. When he finally arrives, we see that Carter's inside a testing room while the other four are looking through a window. And we see that Carter activates a morpher on his wrist and is trying to use some sort of special power. While he's trying to struggle to use the power, we notice that it's a suit. So obviously he's trying to become a new Ranger for the team. Now, of course, we find out that the Titanium Ranger powers are too much for a normal human being. But it felt really weird because why did Carter the only one was being tested on the Titanium Ranger powers? We have four other Rangers. How come they didn't go through it? I mean, Captain Mitchell and Miss Fairweather were going through all this trouble building a new Ranger, yet the other four didn't go through the test. I mean, I understand they probably had their own, their choice to not do it or not, but it just felt weird that Carter was the only one going through it. So after a couple of minutes of Miss Fairweather and Captain Mitchell discussing the titanium powers, they decided to abandon the project because it was too harmful to ordinary humans. So Captain Mitchell locks up the titanium morpher in his safe. Now, this is where this part of the episode where it kind of annoys me. His safe is not really safe. All it is just a simple key lock and a handle. He puts a titanium morpher in there and puts the keys back into his desk. I mean, that's really not safe at all. I mean, the key is not on himself. The key is just in a desk, not even locked up. I mean, anyone could steal the titanium morpher if they wish to. So there were certain aspects of this episode that I didn't like, and this is one of them, really. This stuck out the most. It's like there was no security on it whatsoever. It's a simple lock, and that's it. After a while, that Dana comes into the Captain Mitchell's quarters, and we find out that they're celebrating Dana's brothers. Unfortunately, he had passed away from a car accident. We didn't get so much information from it, but we found out he was dead. Then they were celebrating his 20th birthday. I would like to point out that Captain Mitchell did say that you can change your past. Ironically enough, 1 year later, Power Rangers Time Force happened, and they do indeed change their past. So after Captain Mitchell and Dana celebrate Ryan's unfortunately 20th anniversary, assuming he was dead and all, later that night, someone actually infiltrated the Aqua base. Here's another instance where I didn't believe it at all. I understand that the writers had to be dealing with a plot point, but the point is that it felt too contrived. I mean, there was no security whatsoever near those scuba entrance areas. I mean, there's no lid on the scuba area. They didn't do anything. There's no security. There's no alarms or nothing. I mean, they could have gone a different way where Ryan tripped the alarm and then he had either a special cloaking device where it made him invisible, or they just simply lost him and couldn't track him down where he was. So while we're following this unknown person, he infiltrates the Aqua base, avoids all the personnel, avoids all kinds of security, and enters the Captain Mitchell's command room, which I'm surprised he knew where it was. I mean, I assume there's a leak somewhere in the Aqua base where someone was telling them where things are, and this person steals the titanium morpher. After a little bit, Viper comes down on Earth and attempts to bring out the Rangers. Now, I have to point out, like everyone else knows, unfortunately, Jennifer Lynn is still considered the worst actor in PR history. I mean, every line she delivers, it just feels so fake and so unprofessional at all. It's like me, if they hired me on Power Rangers and I was playing Vipra, I wouldn't be able to deliver a line because I'm not an actor. While Viper's making the Rangers fight all the stupid minions and usual, the Rangers find out that someone has stolen the titanium morpher and has become the new Titanium Ranger. Now let's talk about the Titanium Ranger. As everyone mostly knows, that he is the first American Ranger that we have ever done. The reason why this happened is because in the original Super Sentai, the series was called Go-Go 5, meaning only 5 Rangers. So unfortunately, they could not have a 6th Ranger. Although they did have 2 characters that kind of fit the role, in one in the movie and one as regular series extra, but there was mainly no 6th Ranger. The Max Solar Zord in Go-Go 5 was simply automated and a living being called Liner Boy. Now, since he's the first American Ranger, they still do get the people who originally designed the Go-Go 5 material to design the Titanium Ranger. That means Plex designed the uniform. While sticking with the original Go-Go 5 material, the helmet, of course, has the V, because since the series is called Go-Go 5, has the V motif on pretty much all kinds of material. Also, the breather inside the helmet has been kept. But the main suit design was actually inspired from an older Super Sentai that was never done here. His suit was mainly designed from the Turbo Ranger suits, not to get confused with Power Rangers Turbo. We're talking about a Super Sentai season that was called Turbo Rangers. Overall, the same T logo on his chest and the shoulder pads are basically designed from that suit. But the axe and his helmet are originally designed for PR. So while the Rangers are trying to figure out who stole the Titanium Morpher, they're fighting off the new Titanium Ranger. He easily overpowers the Rangers because unfortunately the Rangers do not understand or how he fights and everything, and plus he's more stronger than the other Rangers, so they unfortunately lose the first fight. So eventually the Rangers return to the Aqua base and are trying to discuss what's going on, how the Rangers are dealing with the new Titanium Ranger being evil, and they have to figure out what they can do. I also like to point out that there was a weird editing issue with this episode. It's not really a censoring issue, but when the episode was re-aired on ABC Family, I noticed that they cut out the scene where Captain Mitchell returns to his room and checks his safe for the Titanium Morpher. That scene seems to have been cut from the ABC broadcast, while in the original aired episode, that scene was in there. And it went to the later scenes where they were discussing the regrouping of what to do with the Titanium Ranger. I just felt it was weird that they go and cut this. I assume it was for time, just to add an extra commercial in, and not a censoring issue, because it wouldn't be any censoring issue at all. So the Titanium Ranger returns to Earth and attempts to attack all the people in there while the Lightspeed Rescue Rangers arrive on the scene. They morph and actually fight off the Titanium Ranger. As usual, they're trying to fight him off, but since they're overpowered, they don't know how to fight him. Luckily enough, Miss Fairweather completed a new form of weapon called the V-Lancers. Now, the V-Lancers are the only Japanese footage that the show uses. Very few little close-up shots and stuff in that. I also want to point out that the V-Lancers in Go-Go 5 had a boomerang mode, which they actually used to attack people along with the main weapon mode. Now, I don't know why it was unfortunately cut from Lightspeed Rescue, but you do see the boomerangs when they first introduce the V-Lancers. When they call for them, Carter and the other 4 are grabbing things and combining them into the V-Lancers. So when the Rangers get the new weapons, they fire them onto the Titanium Ranger, and he is blasted to smithereens. Unfortunately, he is very strong and powerful, and he did withstand the shock. Oddly enough, his helmet visor opened up. I don't know, I kind of don't buy it. I prefer that they wish they had damaged his visor in a similar way how Wes's helmet visor was damaged to reveal to his father that he was the Time Force Ranger, but in this one instance it wasn't damaged, it just flipped up. It just felt really weird. So while the Rangers are getting prepared to shoot the second wave at him, which would have definitely killed the Titanium Ranger because he was severely weakened and limping trying to attack the Rangers, Captain Mitchell orders them to stop. While the Rangers are confused and shocked that they're ordering this, they retreat and give up because of course they're under his leadership and they have to follow orders. Now, when the Rangers return to the Aqua base, of course, they're going to confront Captain Mitchell of what's going on. They should have killed him because, unlike he was risking people's lives, they almost killed them. Then we find out that that was Captain Mitchell's son. Everyone, including Dana especially, was shocked that this was found out. Overall, I thought this episode was very well done. I mean, it's a really pretty much a full American episode of good originality. A good storytelling, of course, because it's from Judd Lin. He does write excellent work. I give it a 4 out of 5, although the only things that really complained about to me is the unbelievable circumstances where there was no security on the Titanium Morpher. There's no lockout. That's the one thing I really complained about Morphers. Anyone could pretty much steal a Morpher and use it. There's like no lockout on it. The only morphers that are permanently safe are the Time Force morphers where they're DNA locked. You literally can't do anything unless you figure out how to hack the morpher's DNA code. But every other morpher in every series could literally be taken by anyone and be abused. What do you guys particularly think about this episode? Do you guys like Ryan and how the American Ranger has been used in Lightspeed Rescue? While we do get an American Ranger, the problem is though is that he was hardly used. The reason why is since I couldn't rely on the use of the Go-Go 5 footage, we unfortunately didn't use him that much. He's either fighting his own fight or he was out of the show for like a really long time. It's just really bizarre that they spent all this money on making a 6th Ranger that we did not get any of that. We hardly got any of the footage of Ryan and him fighting and stuff. I also like to point out that originally in the first few episodes of the Titanium Ranger, we were using these specially designed toy suits where we're having the high shine material. And as you know, it's a weaker material, so that's the reason why PR usually switches over to a more thicker material that doesn't rip as often, but it usually doesn't look as well because it's not made of the same reflective material. I also like to clarify on the confusion with the Lightspeed Rescue opening footage with the Titanium Ranger. The majority of the people thought that the original Titanium shot where he's in front of the building, all at night scene, was actually shot in Japan and used over for the opening for us. Actually, in reality, that was not actually shot in Japan. It was actually shot in Los Angeles because the majority of the people do recognize that building. So it was originally shot here and not over there. Thanks again for watching. I hope to see you guys here next week. Hello everyone and welcome to another Ranger Rant. Of course, everyone knows I'm Archer9234. Today I'll be discussing episode 11 from Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue titled... oh, damn it. Titled Deep in... from Deep... why do I keep screwing this up? Rescue Rangers. I do like to point out the overacting from Miss Fairweather. It just didn't really fit with her character. Normally, the majority of all the actors on PR Lightspeed Rescue are fairly good. They're not perfect, but they're fairly good. But this moment where Fairweather grabs Captain Mitchell and says her line, it just felt really forced and it didn't really work as well.